morning everybody and welcome to Thursday's literacy lesson. We are continuing with the Great Kapok tree today, and our learning objective is to create a story map for your own story that you are going to start writing tomorrow. Okay, we're going to use the story map to plan out your story. So in our model text, the Great Kapok tree, which hopefully you've all got a copy of, a new animal is introduced in each paragraph. What do you notice about how the animals are introduced? Does the sentence always start with the subject, the name of the animal? Pause the video and have 2 minutes to think about it. So you can see the examples here. We've got suddenly, he slowly slithered down. A few minutes later, 4 porcupines scampered down. Next, a small bright green frog, and a little while later, a small child from a nearby tribe. So in these sentences, they never start with the subject. He, the porcupines, the frog, the child. They all start with something else at the beginning, a different opener. They all start with a fronted adverbial, which we've talked about a lot in class. Fronted adverbials are words or phrases at the beginning of a sentence which describe the action that follows. So it might describe when or where or how something happens. So suddenly, he slowly slithered down. This word here, suddenly, shows us how the snake appears. He suddenly appears. This one, a few minutes later, 4 porcupines scampered down. This shows us when they appeared, a few minutes later, and there's a few more examples in the model text showing us when action happens. Can you think of any other fronted adverbials that you might use when you start to write your own story? Pause the video now if you've got an adult with you that you can talk to about it. See if you can think of a few together. Pause the video for a couple of minutes. So maybe you've come up with some fronted adverbials. Here's a few that I came up with. So here we talked about adverbs earlier in the week. Words like this can be put at the front of a sentence to show how something is happening. So you might use it to introduce how your character appears, cautiously, slowly, menacingly. You might use a fronted adverbial to show when the action is taking place. So each time, remember in the Great Kapok tree, the man was asleep under the tree and different animals kept appearing. So after a while, later that day, finally, to show us when the action is taking place. You might use one of those to show when your animal arrives. Or you could have a fronted adverbial giving a little bit more information. It might be about where something is happening. So swinging through the trees, under the fallen leaves, high up in the trees. So you might use a fronted adverbial to introduce where some of the action is taking place. So when you start to plan today, you can add fronted adverbials to your plan. You won't be writing in full sentences, but if you think of any really good fronted adverbials that you would like to use when you start writing tomorrow, just note them down on your plan. Okay, so we're going to plan. You're going to plan your own story today based on our model text. And there are 3 levels of challenge. I'd really like to see you challenging yourselves. Think about our daring petal. I'd really like you to go for it. We've got some amazing writers in year 3 and 4, and I'm really looking forward to what you produce. So challenge 1, if you're one of the children who often work with an adult or on the horseshoe table getting some support with writing, what we'd like you to do is to plan a story that's set in the rainforest. You can use 2 of the animals that are already in the Great Kapok tree and then add your new animal that you drew and labelled earlier on in the week. And you can keep the ending of the story the same. Okay. For challenge 2, what we'd like you to do is to plan a story set in the rainforest, and you can include 2 of the original animals and then add in 2 or 3 animals of your own, some animals that you drew and labelled and described earlier in the week. If you want an extra challenge, you might change the ending to the story. It might not be such a happy ending, or it might be a slightly different ending. And then finally, we know that we've got some writers who really want to get creative and don't want to stick to a particular structure. For those children, if you want to, you can plan a story in a brand new setting. So you could choose a desert or a beach or the Arctic. It's up to you. Try to get creative and think about what animals you would find in that particular setting. Use 5 brand new animals in your story. You can still follow the same structure. So the first paragraph is going to be introducing the setting, and then you're going to have a new paragraph for each new animal that you introduce. Your ending might be very similar. Your creatures might persuade the main character not to harm that habitat, or it might be a different ending. Get creative, think about our dreaming value and go for it. Really challenge yourselves. So your task for today to plan the story. There's a copy of this story map on the website. If you want to make your own story map, that's fine. Some of you I know like to plan in different ways, but this story map is quite a good way to follow each paragraph and to set out the structure of your story. On a plan, you don't need to write full sentences. So we're just going to be looking for words and phrases. So for your new animals, you will have lots of those words and phrases already from when you did your description and your plan of description. So for my jaguar, I might have a spotty, glossy coat that I write in here. I might have the teeth as sharp as knives. I'm going to have how he walks. In this speech bubble, I'm going to have what my jaguar is saying about losing his prey and losing his possibility to eat food because the tree's been chopped down where all the animals live. Okay, so for each animal you're going to have in this box, you could do a picture if you want to, but you're going to have words and phrases to describe them, and in the speech bubble what they are going to say in your story. The first paragraph here will introduce the setting. So if you're writing about the rainforest, this is where we're going to see some lovely description about the luscious green leaves or the canopy of trees. If you're really challenging yourself for challenge 3 and you're going for the grasslands in Africa or a beach setting, this is where we need to be seeing that lovely descriptive language. Imagine that you are in that place and what you can hear and see, and get that description in there so that your reader has got a clear picture in their mind. Okay, so on your story map, you're going to have your setting here being introduced in paragraph 1. You are then going to have a paragraph for one animal, a paragraph for your next animal. If you are doing challenge 1 or 2 and sticking to using some of the animals that are already in the Great Kapok tree, you might, for example, have porcupines, you might have the frog, and then you might have a character of your own in here and another character of your own in here. If you're doing challenge 1, you might not fill all of these boxes because you might just have 3 animals in your story. So don't worry if you don't use this box, and this box. The final paragraph for everybody is going to show if the main character listens to the animals and changes their actions. So in the Great Kapok tree, the character did listen and he dropped his axe and he walked out of the rainforest. If you're doing challenge 1, you're going to keep that ending the same. If you're doing challenge 2, that main character, you might decide, doesn't drop his axe. He might do something else, or he does drop his axe, but for a different reason. If you are doing challenge 3, your character at the end, it might have a similar ending to the Great Kapok tree, that your animals in your new setting manage to persuade that character not to harm their habitat, or it might have a totally different ending. But this final paragraph is where you show the main character's actions and how they have listened to the animals. So you're going to pause the video now and you're going to need to spend probably 20 to 30 minutes planning out your story map. Remember, the more information you get on here, the easier it will be when we start writing. So get words and phrases on there for each animal and what each animal is going to say to the main character. You need to put that in the speech bubble. Okay, pause the video now. So hopefully you have completed your story map and you've got a clear idea of the story that you are going to start writing tomorrow. If you've got someone at home that you can talk to, just talk through your story map and explain what your story is going to be, share some of the language so that you've got a clear idea. It might be that when you talk through it, you want to add some extra bits or change some extra vocabulary, and that's fine. If there's nobody around to talk it through later, you can still read it through to yourself and maybe talk to somebody about it later on today. Okay, I'll see you back here tomorrow, ready to start writing. Post your plan and story map on Dojo, and I will see you tomorrow.